Hello, everybody, and welcome to the July episode of the South Dakota Forest Health Workshop Series. Today, we will be discussing tree plant species.
No, that's for you.
Plant tree species, and I'm just mumbling over here. Tree species to plant and some to not. We'll be going over desirable and undesirable species for trees in South Dakota, and I'll get myself together here. A couple housekeeping notes as before we begin. This workshop is being recorded. This recording will be placed on our YouTube playlist for future viewing. I'll make sure to post a link to that playlist in the chat today. There's about 20 other past workshops that we have posted there for your knowledge and edification. Um, if you are an SAF certified forester or an ISA certified arborist, please put your credentials in the chat box today. A little different for the ISA certified arborists than normal, but if you're both or either an SAF certified forester or an ISA certified arborist, please put your credentials in the chat box and we'll make sure those get reported in a timely fashion. If you do have any questions throughout the meeting, please feel free to put those in the chat as well. We'll have some time towards the end to have some discussion here. And without further ado, Dr. Ball, I'll turn it to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Tony. I'm going to hit that. And let's see here. All right. Well, we should be ready to go, folks. So, good afternoon, everyone. And for those of you that are enduring storms today, hopefully you didn't have too many trees down. I know Woonsocket, Huron, a couple places got hit already today. I think we're going to get hit about 2:30 this afternoon, but it's been that sort of a year. A couple of things to get this one started. Yep, trees to plant and some to avoid. The some to avoid is going to fairly quick. We don't want to spend a lot of time on what you don't plant. We want to spend a lot of time on what you should plant. But it's worthwhile going over a couple of naughty trees as well. The other thing too is that this does fit for North Dakota and South Dakota, though admittedly, if you live down in Dakota Dunes at the southeast corner of South Dakota, you can plant everything. You get to color with a full box of crayons. If you're up in Minot, well, we give you a pencil and a piece of paper, I guess. There are going to be trees that can grow there, as well as northwestern South Dakota and everywhere in between. So we'll cover those. The last thing is this is going to be obviously factual and opinionated. Plants, people are always opinionated. So when I say here's trees to plant, this is John Ball's list of trees to plant, and I'll try to defend my recommendations. But don't be too surprised if you talk to some other plant nerd and they come up with, I don't think, a completely different list, but with some differences. And I'm sure some of you that are plant geeks as well can come up with some that maybe in the chat box say, but you didn't talk about. Well, this is an hour, not a day. But always pleased to hear what you think I should have mentioned that I perhaps didn't during this hour. Mostly deciduous trees, but we will be covering conifers towards the end as well. So let's get her started because now's a good time to start thinking about what are you going to plant next spring? Well, a good reminder, ash is on the naughty list. It kind of heads the naughty list right now. The adults are still out flying, not as numerous as they were a couple of weeks ago. And mom is feeding on leaves between time periods of laying eggs. And then we're also finding, of course, a lot more damage out there. And we're also looking at what's going to change. This is Millbank, South Dakota, where we did confirm emerald ash borer, what, a month ago, maybe at this point. And that is one town that did never wanted to see emerald ash for why more than 50% of all their trees are ash, public and private. Imagine what the street's going to look like after emerald ash borer goes through it. And so again, we want to make sure we diversify, but intelligent diversification, by that just not planting trees out there for the sake of diversity, making sure we make good choices. And remember, site equals success. Site equals success. You can find a great tree, but you plant it on a poor site, it's going to become a poor tree. And so while I've got some really cool trees here today, some of them are fairly site sensitive. They like a particular site and not much else. So you might find some sites limit your selections as well. And I also want to mention this. I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of May in the UK, which seems to be about a month ahead of us always. And it was kind of a delight. I got to go to all the big gardens. This is Kew Gardens, one of those gardens you have to see if you're a plant nerd, particularly if you like trees and shrubs, because it's a big one just outside of London. And I'm putting this tree up here for a very important reason. This is flowering ash. And the reason I'm putting it up here is, let's say you decide as a community you're going to, quote, save every ash tree in town. Let's say Millbank decided to do that. Half the trees they're going to save. Now, by the way, I highly recommend treating ash trees. Do not get me wrong. But in some communities, we have frankly just too many ash, period. And the reason I have this slide up here is because of this. Right next to those trees, and some were clearly dying, they had this plaque. Ash is the third most common tree, but is currently being devastated by a fungal disease causing ash dieback. Now, by the way, that fungal disease is from China as well as the insect. Up to 85% of UK ash trees may die. So I want you to give that a little thought here. Now, that disease has not shown up in the United States yet. Let's hope it never does. But let's say at a tremendous cost, you save all your ash trees by injection. You save them from the emerald ash borer. And then this disease comes in and wipes them out. So we don't want to keep high populations of ash. You'll certainly see me advocating for keeping some populations of ash, that I do want to see ash still in communities, and injection's a good way to go. But when people say, well, why not inject everything? Well, what about the next threat, which is already in Europe, and it's a pretty short hop across the pond to get to the United States as well. So just a note of caution when you're injecting. Yes, the 2 trees in your yard to provide you a great shade, absolutely treat them. But for a community to go out and say, let's save everything, nope, you're saving it for this round, not necessarily the next round. And a reminder too, that too many people are going for the low-hanging fruit. They remove the ash trees and they plant maples. And everybody knows maples are on my naughty list. We already have the Asian longhorn beetle as a potential threat, but we also have unknown threats. The fact is, China has more species of maple than any other country, and it's a major trading partner still. And so we run a risk of having something come in, as we do any other country, and those countries run risks with us as well. But if something were to come over from Europe, Asia, and start taking out our maples, we're going to say, why did we do that? So let's diversify. And so maples that we've already overplanted, Norway maples, really, do we need another cultivar Norway maple? There's a lot of them. We're splitting hairs, people, and there's far too many of them than we need in most communities. And of course, if you take a look, there's some other great trees out there, some other great spots. So this is Kew Gardens again as we're getting started. That's what it looked like in early May. And by the way, if you want to be a tree, that's a great place to grow. It's not too hot, not too cold, not too wet, not too dry. It's the Goldilocks climate. So it's a great spot to be. And by the way, some of the pictures you'll see here are from the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh, which actually has a little bit more diversity because of its climate than does the garden at Kew. And I'm going to start out with this one. You can't grow it. But I had to take a picture of it. This is at the Royal Botanic Garden of Edinburgh. This is that ancient pine tree. Now, it's not a pine that they found in Australia, 120 miles from Sydney, in canyons that had not yet really been explored, at least botanically speaking. And they found a grove of these trees. I mean, less than 100, I believe, growing up there. But this is that, as it's called, Woolmere pine. But it's in a genus by itself. It's closely related to monkey puzzle trees and Norfolk Island pines. But it's one cool looking tree, and they can grow it in Scotland. Now, we can't grow in the United States north of about Atlanta, Georgia. So it's not going to be on your list of trees to plant. But again, it's always fun to go to gardens where they can grow everything we can grow and then so much more. So let's take a look at some trees here. And by the way, the star at the top, that says BSN Big Sioux Nursery. And I've chatted with Matt down there, and he shared a list that he had of trees that are trying. And I think that's important because I know we get a lot of conservation districts that listen in on this. And they're always, well, why don't they grow this and why don't they grow that? And I understand that. But on the other hand, they're running a business and they have to grow to sell. So I'll also point out if they grow something, you must buy it. Okay. We can't have them suddenly growing, not suddenly, but slowly growing something. Remember, they have to build up stock. It's not instant. These aren't machine parts. But there'd be nothing worse for a business than growing all the stock for a anticipated demand that does not show up. But we do need to try some more trees. And so if I have a star next to it, that means it's on Matt's list. Now, in this case, it's not quite. What they're looking at growing is a speckled alder. Okay. And I'm not really chatting about that today. It's a tall shrub, multiple stem, small tree. And I think that does have some possibilities for a windbreak tree. Okay. For a windbreak tree, tall shrub, small tree in a windbreak. So to let you know that they are going into that, looking at it. But for everybody else, the Prairie Horizon Alder, which is a North Dakota State University introduction, they do a lot of phenomenal plants up there, and this being one of them. We've planted it on campus, and it is one of those trees that people take a picture of it and bring me the picture and say, John, what's this tree? Because there's these little strobis. They look like little pine cones hanging from them, and it's pretty cool. Now, nice broad pyramidal form, no fall color for this tree, none. Kind of a bluish gray bark, which is rather attractive. Cold hardy to zone 3. Interesting enough, it is drought tolerant, which is a little unusual for a lot of our alders, but this one is to a degree, to a degree. Wouldn't plant it out where it's never going to get water. I like those cone-like fruits in fall and winter, which are the strobis that hang from us. Kids, we used to spray paint them silver and use them in Christmas ornaments. The foliage is kind of interesting as well. Kind of this large duckbill sort of leaf to it, which does drop kind of a green to a brown. But if you're looking for a small tree, the 25-foot range, this is a good possibility and a plant that, frankly, we don't utilize much of. This we overuse. The autumn blaze maple. We all love it. Grows fast. Great fall color. Please stop. Let's stop the madness. If you don't have a Freeman maple, well, you're probably the only one in 2 states. But then, yeah, I guess you can plant one. And there are some great cultivars out there. This isn't one of them. There's a lot better ones that have come up since then. But I will say you cannot say anything wrong about the fall color, which is incredible. But what are some others? Well, if you do want to plant a maple, let's plant an Asian maple, which doesn't seem to be bothered by our North American pests. And this is State Street maple, the Miyabi maple. Kind of a rounded form to it. This is one certainly growing on the campus of South Dakota State University in really poor soil. I've seen it is very, very adaptive to sites. A beautiful fall color, which I'll show you in a moment. I do want to point this out, particularly for any North Dakotans watching this. It's grafted quite often on a hedge maple rootstock. Now, hedge maple's a definite zone 5 plant. And we lost some of these one year, one spring, when we had an open winter. Well, what happened with the open winter? That 3 inches above the ground, that was just hedge maple rootstock, that died. And so when the top tried to leap out because it wasn't dead yet, it couldn't pull up any water and the entire tree's just wilted away. So if you're planting these, make sure you kind of have a good snow cover or something around the base. Don't just stack mulch up there. You made a home for critters unless you also cage that. But I do love the tree. It requires very little pruning, has a moderate growth rate, beautiful leaves. And by the way, you'll rarely find anything chewing on them. Most insects seem to avoid them. And I just love the fall color. It's just a beautiful tree in autumn. So again, if you say, John, I want to plant a maple, this is a good one. 30 feet look at is probably its maximum height. So kind of a nice small one. I saw a street lined with them in Rapid City, and they were just gorgeous trees. What do you think of this one? That's Kelly's Gold Maple. That is a box elder. That's what it looks like in the summertime. Now, I also want you to look at the zone. It's a zone 5A, and here's our problem. Box elder has a lot of cultivars. Most of them aren't hardy. I know it's crazy. They're zone 5s or 6. I took this picture in Washington, D.C. at the National Botanical Garden, and it's doing phenomenal there. But here it doesn't do that well, but I kind of like the color. I leave it up to you whether you do or not. The Sensation box elder, I hate to say it, but that's hit or miss. I've seen some nice ones in Fargo. I've seen someone's dying of winter kill in Brookings. I've seen some great ones out in Spearfish. It seems to be hit or miss as how well they do. I certainly wouldn't plant a lot of them, but if you want to try a box elder that grows like a pole and has a reddish fall color, some years just a very bright yet red, some more of a pink. But I'll tell you, this is one problem, is they're just as sensitive to herbicide as all box elders. And so if anybody's used 2,4-D anywhere around it, all the leaves will be twisted and curled. It's just a characteristic of box elders. Well, Buckeyes, I kind of like them. And Autumn Splendor's become one of my favorites. Now, South Dakota released one as well, the Homestead Buckeye, but due to grafting cost, it's rarely seen in the trade. Autumn Splendor, which is a University of Minnesota release, is very much available. We planted them on campus. They can have a kind of a maroon red fall color, but don't count on it. I would say I see it about once every 5 years in Brookings. Hardy to about zone 4A, so more of a South Dakota than a North Dakota plant. As all Buckeyes are, it is drought sensitive, so it's not a drought tolerant plant. And you know what I like about this one? Flowers are gorgeous, doesn't produce Buckeyes. Squirrels will be disappointed if you plant it. Now, North Dakota released one as well, the Prairie Torch. Now, I've seen the fall color on it, and it can be brilliant. And the leaves kind of hang a little bit, which is kind of almost tropical, I'll say. It is also a zone 3 plant. Now, the one I saw, how's that? Sample size of 1, had Buckeyes on it in the fall. And from the literature I've read, it says, well, you will get them. How many, I don't know, but I can tell you the Autumn Splendor has zip when you look at it. And there's our tree. And you can see all the flowers on it, gorgeous. About 30 feet, kind of a small tree out there. Flowers are gorgeous in the spring, no Buckeyes. So you get to avoid that problem. Now, Black Hills, Big Sioux Nursery is looking at this. Now, not this cultivar, by the way, but growing paper birch. And it's not a real fast grower sometimes in our state, but it's still a nice tree. And the one I like for an ornamental is the Renaissance Reflection. Anything that has the word Renaissance in it as paper birch is a good tree to try because it's part of the Renaissance series. And those are drought tolerant trees. And we need drought tolerant paper birch because otherwise they can be attacked by the bronze birch borer, which can be devastating to these trees. I like the form, kind of a nice upright form. Yellow fall color can be gorgeous. We have native stands of paper birch in the Black Hills, though some people say it's the western species, but I'll let botanists argue the point. Cold hardy to zone 3, so both states you can grow it anywhere. This one, again, this cultivar is drought tolerant. And by the way, it's very tolerant to bronze birch borer. So if you say, I want to plant a birch tree and not worry about bronze birch borer, any of the Renaissance series, and Renaissance Reflection is one of my favorites. Typical leaves that you see on a paper birch. Now, North Dakota, yeah, you released this one, and I'm not a big fan of it. It is a pretty tree, but it is an Asian white birch. And you know what? Since the 1970s, people keep releasing cultivars of the Asian white birch and calling them borer resistant, and none are. Uh, Bronze birch borer is native to North America. Our Asian birches are very susceptible to attack, just like emerald ash borer is native to Asia, but all our native ash are susceptible to attack. And that, so I don't even recommend this. It was sold as high tolerance to bronze birch borer. It is not. 5 years, we can keep them alive in Brookings, just like the European. So if you're going to plant a birch, buy American. How's that? Because you're getting a tree that can tolerate bronze birch borer. But on these, here's some that are fairly nice size, but every one of them was infested. So you have to treat them if you want to keep them alive. And that goes with this one too. Now, by the way, I love this tree. The form of it's great, but they're going to look like this about 5 years after you planted them. This is the Parkland pillar. It's a very much an upright tree. Very narrow and very fast growing, by the way. 3 feet a year. It's amazing. Cold tolerant, but it's desiccation sensitive. The tops of them dry out very easily. They're attacked by borers and killed. These are pictures of them at Quarry Gardens. You can see they're already dying back. If I took a picture of them today and put it up here, they're dead. So again, if you say I only want a tree to live for 5 years, perfect. But they're not long for the landscape. Now, we don't worry about bronze birch borer and river birch because bronze birch borer doesn't even see it as birch trees, and I do love them. But in South Dakota, they become chlorotic because of a lack of available iron in the soil. Now, North Dakota did release the Northern Tribute, which is a tree from Dickinson, and I remember seeing the tree. And that, so if you want to plant a river birch and you can find this one, it's not always easy to get. I certainly would go with this one. It's going to be very hardy. It's alkaline tolerant. Now, we'll see. By that, we need to see it out on more sites. But right now, I can tell you, you want to look at yellow river birch, go to Sioux Falls in the summer. Every one of them's turned yellow. Why? Because of the alkalinity of the soil. So let's at least try one that may have a chance at avoiding that problem. And this would be an excellent choice. Now, yellowwood is one that Matt is looking at or has maybe even growing some already. And he's actually getting them to live up in Watertown, South Dakota. We can certainly have them grow in Brookings, South Dakota. They're wonderful trees. This picture I took in Ohio. I just happened to be there this spring and got one in bloom. But we plant them a lot in the Sioux Falls area and that. I would not call this a windbreak tree, but I'd call it a real nice ornamental. Rounded form, cold hardy to about 4B. So Watertown is pushing it, but maybe working. But certainly, I do not fear winter damage in Brookings, South Dakota, or anywhere south of it. So south of Highway 14, you're in pretty good shape with it. In fact, it's native to eastern United States, and one of the largest ones I've ever seen is in Huron, South Dakota. And there's another monster in Sioux Falls. By monster, 50 some feet tall. And when they're in bloom, they're spectacular in May. These long chains of very fragrant flowers. Now, interesting enough, this tree is adapted to limestone soils out east in Ohio and that. It can take a pH of 8. I used to sell this in garden centers back in the 70s. It's a hard sell. Why? It's in bloom. Everybody comes in and buys it. This is the last tree to leaf out in the spring. We'd even write it on the sales tag. Don't dig it up next spring. And people would. They'd say, oh my gosh, everything else is leafing out, but this one, I'm going to dig it up and get my money back. Well, it was alive when they dug it up, but not when they left in the back of their truck for 2 days before they came back to the garden center. So it does nothing, 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 and then bam, leaves out and flowers. And the flowers are fragrant. Fall color, yeah, not so much. It gets the name yellowwood because the yellow of the inner bark, not for fall color. But it does kind of have some little yellow highlights to it, and the bark is rather attractive as well. Coffee tree, one of my favorites. Anyone that's ever heard me knows that I love coffee trees. I love coffee too. The espresso here, It's one of the nice ones, kind of an elm-like form, arching limbs, pretty tree, labeled to zone 4. Uh, Notice it says podless. Hey, wait a minute, I see pods on this. So let's go into that for a moment. Now, by the way, the tree does have flowers. Flowers are attractive. The female flowers are scented. They're very nice. And remember, this tree is dioecious staminate flowers, what we call male flowers on one tree, pistillate flowers on another tree. Well, we tend not to want the flowers because the flowers become the fruit. And the fruit has a very interesting history, by the way. Um, Mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, that's what used to eat them 8 to 10,000 years ago. Nothing eats them now. By that, eats them and poops them out so that they can germinate. So it's actually going to extinction in the wild because there's nothing to get the seeds to germinate. Now, the seed weathers enough that it germinates. And by the way, if you have a coffee tree in your yard and you quit mowing your lawn, you'll get a colony. They root sucker prolifically. We have one in McCory Garden, middle of a mulch bed. The entire thing is now coffee trees. And not a single one of those coffee trees came up from seed. They're just all connected. But we do have ones that are seedless. Why are they seedless? By that, fruitless. Well, because they only produce staminate flowers. So espresso's one, but I already showed you the flowers, fruit on that. True North is another one from Minnesota. Very nice tree. But why do we get these pods? This is right on campus. That's an espresso. It's the roots. I put this picture up there just to show you that almost all our trees are grafted. The roots are one tree, the top is another. Now, typically we try to get them so they both grow at the same rate. In this case, the top is growing faster than the bottom. But all your coffee trees, cultivars, are grafted trees. Here's what I want you to do, and here's what we found the problem is. And I have an article on this in Arborist News. See the little crook at the base in this picture? See that little crook? That's where it was grafted. Okay. So the cultivar you bought was grafted on an unknown rootstock. That rootstock could be a male coffee tree. It could be a female coffee tree. One of the things that surprised me, do you know what the success rate of grafting coffee trees is? About 1 out of 3. So that means you go out and graft 10, 6, 7 of them, the graft isn't going to take. You have a rootstock, which could be male or female. So one of the things I'm encouraging everybody to do when you go out and buy a cultivar of coffee tree, look at the base. You better see that crook. If you can't see a crook like that, the sign is a cultivar you bought, the rootstock is whatever they planted on it. Don't buy that tree. If it looks like this, that's all rootstock. That's the espresso that I have in the picture, and that the graft never took. And unfortunately, that is a common problem. So for everyone buying a coffee tree, and I recommend them, they're wonderful trees, make sure if you're buying a cultivar that you bought a cultivar, not a rootstock. Okay, honey locust. Well, there's a lot of honey locusts I don't recommend, and there's one I really recommend, and that's the Northern Acclaim in North Dakota introduction again. It's a gorgeous tree. It's very hardy. It's very fast growing. It again is just another stellar tree that was produced at North Dakota. Now, I'll also mention there's Prairie Silk, which was released in Manitoba. Oddly enough, at least from the literature I've read, the Northern Acclaim actually seems to be a little winter hardy, more winter hardy. That's a good choice of words, than the Prairie Silk. Prairie Silk sometimes gets some tip dieback. Northern Acclaim, I don't care what the winter throws at it. In Brookings, I've not seen any hardiness problems with that tree at all. Small foliage, people like it, so it's a light shade. You don't have to worry about your lawn dying on it. But I'll tell you the other reason you like the Northern Acclaim. is a lot of our older cultivars of honey locust, they'll get some winter kill right where the branch connects with the trunk, and nectaria canker gets introduced into there. And you get a tree that's cankered out. Here's a small one on campus. There's a whole line of them. And so if you're looking for a honey locust, Northern Acclaim is the one I recommend the most. There's also a couple of others. There's Street Keeper, which is another introduction, which you can try as well. But I'll tell you, Northern Acclaim's his favorite. And again, the opinion piece, so that's my opinion. Now, a tree I wish you would try, but most people don't, is Ammermachia. It's an Asian tree, very few close relatives to it. It's in bloom right now. I took that picture yesterday in full bloom. It's a small tree, about 25 feet small. Hardy to zone 3B, so certainly performs well into North Dakota. The reason it's never popular is nobody goes to a garden center in July. They're empty. Everybody goes in May. This wakes up late. So most people, oh, it's a stick over there. I'm not going to buy it. The other thing too is this is a very alkaline tolerant tree. Now I didn't misspell that name, magnificent. Believe it or not, that's the cultivar name. You don't forget it apparently. That's another cultivar. Summertime is the University of Minnesota introduction. This one, the other one, magnificent, is from a nursery out in Oregon, Frank Schmid's nursery. But both excellent trees. Look at the flowers. Aren't those pretty? And they're in bloom right now. And they smell like fresh cut alfalfa. I love it. Now, this is a tree that Matt's looking at, and this is American Hophorn Beam, also known as Ironwood. When I say Matt's looking at it, he's also looking at it from a windbreak perspective, and I think he's right. That this is a tree that probably has not been looked at enough for windbreak uses. And it's a nice little ornamental there. You see one on our campus. Australia virginiana is its scientific name. The fall color's not amazing at all, kind of a rusty yellow at all, but certainly hardy anywhere in South Dakota and North Dakota. In fact, native to eastern North Dakota and also native to southeastern South Dakota and in the Black Hills. You'll see the small tree nestled around the pines in that. And it's alkaline tolerant, not worried about that, and is found on gravelly or rocky soils. But it won't take an absolute drought on gumbo soils. But nevertheless, it's a tough little tree. Greg Mortensen, some of you know him from North Dakota, has helped a lot with those introductions. He sent me this picture of what he believed was one of the largest. We actually have a bigger one in Brookings, Hophorn Beam in Dell Rapids, just south of us. And he got this picture in the fall. And you can see it's kind of a pretty tree. They're, think of these more as the 20-foot tree, but I have seen some a little bit taller in southern South Dakota. They do produce the hops. You can see that hanging there. It's kind of cool. And that, again, just a tough little tree. Sycamore, stay away from. Especially this exclamation. This one we've tried planting. Now this is in Nebraska, not South Dakota. Nebraska, they will. It's labeled a zone 4, but it's not a zone 4 tree. It ends up growing a little too late in the year, and it might take our midwinter temperatures, but our frosts come too soon, and it suffers dieback in the falls. Now, this cultivar is anthracnose resistant, and that's kind of important because anthracnose will take all the leaves off the tree in the summer. But you know what? Seed growing sycamores where the parents have been hardy, those are the best to try. And guess what? Every 20 or 30 years, you'll lose a bunch because we get a test winter. That's what happened in Brookings, South Dakota. We lost all our sycamores in one winter. And they've been planted back, and I'll bet we'll have that same winter about 20 years from now. Well, how about oaks? You know how much I like oaks. Well, do we have any other oaks? So yeah, let's talk about them. This is Majestic Skies. This is from Jeffers Nursery up in Manitoba. And that one of Rick Durant's introductions. And it actually does extremely well. And that leaves come out red, turn green, and turn red again. It's a beautiful little tree, cold hardy to about zone 3. So again, we can grow it anywhere. More alkaline tolerant than the other red oaks, but know what I say, 7.3. So if you've got a 7.5 or 7.6, you may still find this tree becomes chlorotic. The species, though, is native up into northern Minnesota, so it's a pretty tough tree. Heritage oak, I always talk about it. I love this tree. Fast growing. To me, it looks a little bit nicer than a bur oak, a little bit more refined than a bur oak. It's more alkaline tolerant than other oaks. Having said that, last year and this year, I got samples of this tree where the leaves were clearly chlorotic. So I don't know the pH they were on, but apparently there's limits to its alkaline tolerance. Certainly on 7.3, 7.5, it's okay. But apparently north of that, it may still run into some problems. All right, try this one, people. That's a shingle oak. Growing on the campus of South Dakota State University has done extremely well for years. I think it's a 4-year-old tree. Look at how fast it grows too. It's one of the white oaks. It's drought tolerant. It can tolerate alkaline soils too. But you wouldn't think of shingle oak. Now note it's a 4B tree. So that's kind of Brookings South. But yes, we can grow more than bur oak and red oak. And I love the leaves. Kind of, you can see where it gets the name laurel leaf oak as well. And then chinkapin. Now, this last week, I looked at a windbreak of chinkapin oak down in Turner County in South Dakota. And they were doing wonderful. This is one on campus that was planted just a couple of years ago, fairly fast growing. Again, zone 4B. Turner County is in our southern part of our state. But you know what? You're in a 4B. There are other oaks you can plant and can consider. Again, this one's drought tolerant, native to alkaline soils, so it does extremely well. And I like the leaves too. This is on Matt's list as well, and one that I think has been way overlooked. And this is the Japanese tree lilac. I don't know why it doesn't get more use. I've seen beautiful specimens in Wall, South Dakota. If you can grow in Wall, you can grow anywhere. But I like the flowers. Flowers in June for us in Brookings. Flowers can be fragrant if it's a cultivar. They can smell a little if it was seed growing, but not too bad. 3B is what it's rated to. North Dakota has one release called Copper Curls. And it's considered a separate species, but now they combine the two species. So the Pekinensis is now considered one of the reticulatas. But the copper curl one has very attractive bark for those that are interested. White flowers on this, it's the last lilac to bloom. And again, drought and alkaline tolerant, but a small tree. You know, that 20-foot range, a little bit taller than that. White flowers, gorgeous white flowers. There's some, like this one, Goldus Eclipse. That's the leaf color. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But they've got some with colorful leaves. I had to throw this one in. Most of you can't plant it. It's a definite zone 4B. We're trying them in Brookings, South Dakota, but they're struggling a little bit. But this is the sterling silver linden. It's a tomentos. And that, what I like about it is look at the leaves. White underside, dark green top. In the wind, oh my gosh, that color change is just as pretty as could be. It's the last linden to bloom too, by the way. So it's often blooming really at the end of June, almost a 4th of July tree, if you will. And look at the leaves on the underside. It's amazing. Well, here's one you can all grow, and that's the Harvest Gold Linden. And I like this tree as well. This is one I took a picture of on campus here that we planted. It's used to be considered a Mongolica. Now they think maybe it's a cross between the two. It doesn't change the tree at all. It's a gorgeous tree. Pyramidal form there, bright yellow fall color. Flowers are fragrant again. Leaves in the summer, nice and crisp. I will say this, if you live in southern South Dakota, those leaves can look a little different because the Japanese beetles will feed on these leaves as they do all lindens. though certainly not as bad as some of the others. And in the fall, you start getting a color change to it, and I kind of like it. It's a pretty little tree. And there's the bark. It's kind of an unusual bark, isn't it? But I think the bark's attractive as well. All right, well, we have a little time for some conifers now. And of course, on our naughty list are Austrian pine and Scots pines, which are being devastated by pine wilt disease, at least in South Dakota. We've not confirmed it in North Dakota. At least I've not heard anything from this year. I know past years we have not seen it. Uh, 20, 30 years ago, it was only in the southern part of South Dakota, and now it's at the North Dakota border. I can see North Dakota from dying pine trees. So it's likely to be up there at some point. And once it is, you're going to start losing your Scots pines and your Austrian pines at a faster rate than you're losing your ashed emerald ash borer. And that late summer, you get the tree suddenly turning color like this, and it's dead that quick. They don't linger. Well, what else can we plant then? I like Meyer spruce, quite honestly. It's one of my favorite trees. There's one on campus. If you drove by, you'd say it a blue spruce. Just looks kind of like a blue spruce. Some of them can be just as blue as any blue spruce. It's a zone 3B tree. It's a little slower growing than blue spruce. And some people notice that, and so they don't like it as much. And you'll sometimes read that it's deer resistant. It is not. Deer love it. And I've seen some windbreaks that have a cedar as the next row, so you got a place for deer to yard in the winter, and all their Meyer spruce look like beach balls. I mean, they're just browsed every year. But right spot, right tree, great tree. Needles are softer than you'll find on the blue spruce, kind of a more blunt tip rather than pointed. Now, here's one I wish we'd try a little bit more of, and this is alpine fir. Now, there's a gorgeous one growing in Jamestown, for example, native out in Montana, and that's a zone 3B plant. This is one growing in Brookings, South Dakota, and that it seems to be more heat tolerant than our balsam fir. So it'd be a good substitute for that. And that I've seen some nice specimens in University of Minnesota Landscape Arboretum and that too, but soft foliage, kind of an interesting tree. One to try. It hasn't been utilized a lot in the Dakotas, and we probably need more plantings out there to really decide how well it does. Doug fir. Yep, that's one that I like. Big Sioux Nursery likes. And a reminder to everybody here, I always recommend the Rocky Mountain Douglas fir rather than the coastal Douglas fir. Reason is the coastal Douglas fir is in a much warmer climate. By that, a much milder winters when I say warmer climates. And because of that, they're not really fully hardy in South Dakota, but the Rocky Mountain seed sources are. And I've had people call and say, well, the Big Sioux Nursery doesn't have the Rocky Mountain. Well, yeah, they do. It's still a Doug fir. So don't worry, people. They're not going to sell you a coastal Douglas fir. But I think it's another tree that's been underutilized. And if you take a look back, a lot of old cemeteries, you'll see monsters out there. If you ever drive by an old cemetery and see what appears to be a gorgeous, real old spruce, I'll bet it's a Doug fir because there aren't very many gorgeous old spruce. Soft needle as well. One that seems to be far more popular in North Dakota than South Dakota, Siberian larch. If you're worried about winter kill, plant it. It's a zone 2 tree. You can grow it in your freezer. Brilliant yellow fall color, seems to be more drought tolerant than the European or the American larch. You can't get people to plant it. Why? Because it looks like a dead spruce all winter. I get it. It's a dead spruce all winter. But all summer, it's gorgeous. And it does have a yellowish fall color. And really, people say, well, I can't use it as an evergreen in my windbreak. Well, yeah, you're right. You can't. But you can use it as a deciduous tree. Okay? It's got needles on in the summer, drops them in the winter. At least consider it. And then finally, just two more. One that it's on Matt's list as well, is limber pine. Now, limber pine's native to South Dakota and North Dakota. Now, the interesting thing, the North Dakota population appears to have been brought in from the genetic study. In other words, the Native Americans carried the seeds out because it's a large seed. It's one of the pine nuts. And some apparently were dropped where a camp was. And you got a population growing out in western North Dakota where it really shouldn't be growing at all because it's high. Otherwise, it's a high elevation tree. The genetics on the ones in South Dakota, yep, they're native. And they just kind of hung out here during the last glacial period. But if you get up to the cathedral spires, you'll see a lot of them there along the edges. And it's a beautiful little tree. Has kind of a nice light colored bark to it. It's zone 4A. I think it's got some windbreak possibilities, and it certainly has some ornamental possibilities. Yes, it is susceptible to white pine blister rust. But we don't see a lot of that problem outside of the Black Hills in the Dakotas. So it's worth planting, but I wouldn't overplant it. Interesting foliage to it, those kind of white lines to it. It's kind of a pretty tree. Okay, one more. All right, we're going back to the queue. This is one of their interior gardens, and I had to go over and take a look at one of their gardens because I wanted to see a plant that I saw in Wyoming, but I haven't seen in South Dakota, and it's one cool plant, yellowhorn. You may have heard about it. I want you to look at its hardiness zone, -40. Zone 3, really a 2. Height about 8 to 20 feet. Edible fruit. It's not invasive. USDA has looked it over. Nobody wants something going crazy. Few pests because it's so isolated from everything else. Drought tolerant. Where it's native, it grows in 14 inches of precip. That's it. It also takes salt, saline soils, and alkaline tolerance. What it will not tolerate is wet feet if you have wet soils. Sounds pretty good so far, doesn't it? Now, Matt's gotten seeds of this, and he's going to grow them and see if it's something that they can use. Because right now, good luck trying to buy the plants. And it has so much potential out there. Leaves look like a mountain ash, quite honestly. Flowers, they're dioecious. You have male and female, staminate and pistillate on separate plants. Now, there can be some co-sexual flowers, in other words, being both stamens and pistils to it, but the flowers are kind of attractive. And the fruit looks like a buckeye, but it's edible. It's edible, like a chestnut. Now, let me also mention this. If your cows eat the leaves, if your cows eat the fruit, it's not poisonous. So I want you to think about this for a minute. Takes our winters, tolerates our soils other than wet, attractive flowers, edible fruit, at least for livestock. You can eat them, you can roast them and that. Very few pest problems. Sounds like a new tree to try, doesn't it? So let's see how Matt does on his propagation and that and see if we actually have something. If you're able to buy this as a container plant somewhere, every now and then they pop up in some unusual places. Try to buy one. But they are hard to find right now still. But again, it has been used in this country. It's used more in the arid west than the humid east, but worth a try everywhere in our states. So with that, I do like to finish a little ahead of time on these things. Particularly, we may have some questions. You folks are probably as opinionated as I am on plants, and there's probably a few that I missed in my short time here that you have. Now, as a reminder to everyone, make sure if you're an ISA certified arborist that Matt has your credentials information because of some delay for some reason. You're going to be self-reporting this time rather than having a number for you to type in. So with that, I will hit the stop and see if we have any questions, Tony.
Few questions in the chat right now. Doak, our friend down there in Nebraska, shared some info on Chinkapin oaks doing well in their alkaline soils, as well as the yellowwood growing well in their higher pH soils. Thanks for that insight, Doak. Patricia's curious, do we ever see the American hophorn beam growing into adults in our region, or
Oh yeah.
growing tall into higher tree form?
Yes, we do. Not very often, and I see that more in town than in the woods. If you're out in the Black Hills, typically I don't see anything bigger than about 8 inches in diameter, or excuse me, 6 inches in diameter, and maybe 20 feet tall at best. There are some taller ones, but you're right. You have to find those in town. I would look at it as a small tree, but larger ones are possible, but rare. And yes, I see. Yeah, 4 inch DBH or 10. Yep, very common.
Yeah.
When we're doing our surveys and we're saying don't measure anything less than 6 inches, you're usually not measuring any of the hophorn beams. And I like Doak's comment. I agree. In southern half of South Dakota, I think we're missing something by not planting some chinkapin oaks. As I said, I've seen some pretty nice belts of them, but in the southern half, especially those counties bordering Nebraska, it has some possibilities.
Our next question comes from Sunny. She's curious, what do you recommend for larger shade trees? Could you narrow or give us just a quick couple of examples of larger shade trees?
Sure, depending on where you're at, basswood and the Redmond linden, Redmond linden, which is actually from Nebraska, 42 release. That's one that I like. It's tough. We can grow it in a lot of areas of the state. I've seen them in Murdo. They're not happy there. But in a lot of other areas, we do use it, and it is a large tree. Hackberry would fit it as well. Some people don't like it because of all the nipple galls and that, but it's a tough tree. And one I didn't discuss today, mainly because we do discuss it a lot, is all the wonderful elms that are available out there. Princeton elm, which is a true American elm, but highly tolerant of Dutch elm disease. That grows amazingly well here, as does the Lewis and Clark, the Prairie Expedition elm, which was released from North Dakota. So if you want a true American elm, Prairie Expedition, also known as Lewis and Clark, and the Princeton elm are really two nice trees to plant. The other ones are the hybrid elms, the Triumph elm, the Accolade elms. Those have done extremely well. And I'll tell you one that I do like, and that's Discovery elm. Doesn't require a lot of pruning. It's a release out of Manitoba. So if you do want a larger shade tree and you do want something that grows reasonably fast, elms are often overlooked, but are great choices.
Now, Mark is curious about our native ponderosa pine. Any thoughts on our ponderosa pine?
It is about the only pine. I will say this from a windbreak standpoint, the worse the soils, the better it grows. You plant it on soils like your garden, it's going to struggle. But you plant it in kind of a rocky, droughty site, man, does that grow. But because of pine wilt, and it's not affected by pine wilt disease, it is one of the few pines we can plant other than limber pine, which is also North American pine. And there have been some plantings of lodgepole pine, which is native to the Black Hills, and jack pine. And I've even seen an occasional red pine being planted. But unfortunately for windbreaks right now, it is all ponderosa pine, and it's a tough tree.
Now, Karen has a general question. What could cause a Colorado blue spruce to have its tips turn brown?
Well, we did get some winter injury. And so if they've been brown all spring, I would look at that. We had some desiccation injury on them. Other than that, I can't really think of anything that just browns the tips. Herbicide's a possibility. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of that this year on trees and shrubs. But if the tips have been brown, the very tips, since spring, probably winter or desiccation or spring frost. And I saw both those injuries this year.
And to our last question here, Dan is curious, as he has received several reports of emerald ash borer around the Lewis and Clark Lake area west of Yankton. Has there been any confirmation or surveying done in that area for EAB?
We do survey it. I was down there a few weeks ago. Did not find anything, but I'm going to follow up on that. Because yeah, it's one of the areas we look for. We have not seen it yet, so no, we have not confirmed it there. But I'll follow up on where these reports may have been generated and see if perhaps there is something.
Laura is curious if we have heard of anyone having problems with our Zimmerman pine moth in ponderosa pine, and I think this might be a good example of our forest pest updates. I believe this was in your one of your most recent
Yeah,
forest
it was
pest updates as well.
very good. It was in this last issue, the July 16th issue. I see a lot of it in Austrian pine and in Scots pine. In fact, the pest update was in Scots pines. And yes, we can also find it in ponderosa pine. It's more of a windbreak problem than anything else, but occasionally it shows up in our ornamental trees. But the Austrian pines get it, the ponderosa pines get it, the Scots pines get it, and the Mugo pines get it. So Zimmerman pine moth can show up in all of them, though its favorite is Austrian pine.
That looks like it concludes our questions in the chat. I'll put one more request for any SAF certified forester or ISA certified arborist credentials to go in that chat so that we can make sure you get those CEUs required for your credentials. Couple other questions just quick came in here as we have a few more minutes. Any thoughts on Stuartia or Katsura?
Stordia, yeah, or
Stuardia
cat
or
surgery.
Katsura.
They make wonderful annuals. We've grown both on the campus, South Dakota State University, and they look great all summer and they're dead by the following year. We have one cat surgery that has kind of lingered on for the last 10 years, but it stays fairly small. Cat surgery is the largest deciduous tree of Japan, and and I've seen them out east, 100 feet tall. But they're not very hardy. So their occasional one, there's one in North Dakota that I know about as well. So Wardeye is a beautiful tree, but that's more of you can grow it well in Nebraska and Iowa. They do not perform very well here, generally speaking. And was there another question, or did I just answer it?
Oh, that one was answered. And then have you seen dieback in the tops of river birch? And
Yes.
will those bounce back, do you imagine?
Yes, and yes. They are very sensitive to winter desiccation injury. This year I saw a lot of them. The top third of the trees were just gone. They have to be watered going into fall. Absolutely, by the water in the fall, that's August, September, October. And we had a dry fall. And if they weren't watered, boy, did they dry out on the top. So that's correct. They do recover, but unfortunately, that's a very common problem with river birch in our area.
That looks like it wraps up our questions. Dr. Ball, thank you. Thank you to all our participants. We had almost 130 people on this month's call. So thrilled for the continued support. We hope to continue to bring you relevant tree information here as the months go on. So join us next month. Keep an eye out for that flyer in the coming weeks. Dr. Ball, any final words?
Nope, everybody, dodge the storms that are kind of crisscrossing the Dakotas today, and we'll see you at our next Forest Health webinar.